All right, I think we're going to get started now. I believe we're recording today's session. So to begin, I want to introduce myself, but first I want to say welcome everyone to the fall's first virtual info session of the 2021-2022 academic year. My name is Nakia El-Ghamdi. I am the Admissions and Recruitment Specialist at the Brown School. And I'm also today's host for today's virtual session. We'll be reviewing all of our programs at the Brown School. So we have a range of information that we'll be covering today, and we've received a bunch of questions from our viewers before the session, but I'd also love for our current live audience to submit questions as we move forward and through the session. You can go ahead and test out the Q&A feature if you would like. It should be at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you click on that, you can go ahead and submit your questions. And if you would like, our Zoom audience right now, if you can you introduce yourself by typing in your name and your hometown in the chat box. I would love to hear where everyone is coming from today. And then I would also love for our two panelists to go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Deja Cooley. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a second year dual MSW MPH student. On the public health side, I plan to specialize in epidemiology and biostatistics. On the social work side, I'm currently doing the health concentration, and I'm originally from Colorado Springs, Colorado, and really excited to answer some of your questions and share our experiences with you today.
Hi, y'all. My name is Allie. I use she, her, and they, them pronouns. I'm a third year MSW MPH dual degree student. My MSW concentration is individualized with a focus on gender, migration, and humanitarian response. And then I'm in the generalist specialization for the MPH program. I'm originally from San Antonio, Texas, and I also spent 6 years in New York City before moving to St. Louis to attend the Brown School.
Thank you, Ali and Deja, for introducing yourselves. And I am seeing that our audience members are also introducing themselves, so thank you all. We have a lot of people coming in today, so I'm happy to see that. All right, so let's move to the next slide. So one thing you'll notice about the Brown School is whether you're browsing our webpage or speaking to faculty, staff, or even students, is that we are dedicated to equity and committed to impact. These are values you'll hear often when we talk about our school, but what does it mean? Simply, our faculty and staff are committed to translating the research we do into actionable solutions, and we bring these solutions into the communities that are most needed. So, meaning that we want to make meaningful changes that positively impact our community. And as our audience members might be wondering right now, how can you be a part of this impact? Luckily for you, the Brown School has put together programs in place that can really help you be a part of an amazing community while also achieving your goals. And so let's have a look at our programs. So you'll see here that we have social work, public health, and dual degrees. So as part of the social work program, you'll have the Master of Social Work, but you'll also have a chance to come in as an advanced standing student if you're eligible. We also have the 3-2 program that is available to our current WashU students, and we also have the PhD in social work. And same goes for the public health program. We have our regular public health master's program, and then we have the advanced standing master's program for public health, and then 3-2 program for our current WashU students and the PhD in public health sciences. And then over here on the bottom, you'll see our dual degrees. So these are degrees that you can combine together while you're at the Brown School to study both social work and public health. And you can also combine your social work master's degree with the social policy. And same goes for the public health. You can combine your Master of Public Health with the social policy. And so when looking at our school as a whole, we can kind of zoom out and talk about our university and where the Brown School lies within. So our institution is quite large. We are actually one of 7 schools at Washington University in St. Louis. We are a premier research university and a global leader in teaching research, patient care, and service to society. And as a Brown School student, you're not just limited to taking classes at the Brown School. You'll have access to all of these schools and all of their programs. And we actually highly encourage a collaborative and transdisciplinary environment. So that's one great thing about the Brown School is you're able to kind of explore different courses outside of the school and inside the school, of course. And so let's have a look at our numbers. Again, we have 3 graduate programs. We have the MSW Master of Social Work program, the MPH Master of Public Health program, and our MSP program, which is our Master of Social Policy. We have a 9-to-1 student faculty ratio, and this is great because students are able to really build those mentorship relationships that really matter during your time at the Brown School and after. We also have 19 faculty affiliated research centers and 3 community-based research initiatives. And I've seen these numbers already grow since I've been working here, which is amazing. And we also have 15 plus student groups and leadership opportunities. So if you are looking for groups that align with your identity or align with certain hobbies that you have, we have those groups here at the Brown School. And then of course, 100% of our students who are requesting scholarship support will receive an award. And so let's kind of dive deeper into what our student body profile looks like. So this profile right here is from our fall 2020 class. So you can see that we had about 243 students who began at the Brown School in fall 2020. Their ages range from 20 to 58 years old. We had about 11 students who are international students coming from 14 different countries. We had 37% students of color, 41% first generation undergrad or graduate students, and then we had 16% of Service Corps alumni. And so let's move on to talk about our programs. But let's first define what these programs are, starting with social work. So to give you a little bit of background information, social work is a field really aimed at improving the overall well-being of populations, especially those that are historically underserved at micro, meso, or macro levels of impact. And then public health is the science of promoting and protecting the health of people and the communities of where they live, learn, work, and play. And then last but not least, social policy is a discipline that examines and promotes social and health equity for humans locally, nationally, and internationally. And so real quickly, I'm gonna ask Deja and Ali to kind of talk about the programs and how they would describe social work and public health.
Yeah, I can go first for this one. So I think of social work and public health and social policy kind of as like different toolkits for addressing the same issues. So like the social work approach is more about like how to work with people and institutions and like skills really developing around that, whereas public health is more of like a STEM-based toolkit, so uses like science and math to address disparities in population health. So from my understanding, they all have the same goals, just with these different like approaches or toolkits.
I would agree with what Ali shared. I think that's a really cool way to think about it. And I also think about when my friends and family ask me about social work and public health, like how do I typically describe it? And so with social work, particularly for me, I find it so important to emphasize that there are roles outside of traditional social work. So most people think about the clinical experience, so case management or doing therapeutic services or providing therapeutic services, but realistically, social work has so many different levels in which you can help communities or individuals or affect policy change that helps people at like the biggest level possible. And then again, with public health, like Ali said, it's really honing in on those health skills. And so I think it's really cool that the Brown School has these together because they all are interconnected.
Thank you both. I think you guys answered it perfectly. And now I kind of want to talk about why we brought these three areas under one roof. So again, why bring social work, public health, and social policy professionals under one roof? Typically, you don't really see schools combining all three together, but at the Brown School, it's unique because we believe that these are complementary fields that share values and objectives. We believe that the fields of social work, public health, and social policy are intrinsically linked. They impact individuals at all levels. And especially this past year and this current year, we've seen how COVID-19 has really brought into a sharp focus the impacts of income inequality, of racial health and disparities, and mental health issues, as well as failed policies. So I think, as you can see, they all really matter and they really affect each other. And at the bottom of this slide, you can see this quote by our professor, Greta Thompson. This is a very important quote from one of our faculties because it really captures the Brown School's essence, and it definitely highlights a universal theme at the Brown School because faculty, staff, and students really do try to achieve making the extraordinary possible. So going back to Ali and Deja, I want to ask you another question. So was having all three of these disciplines under one roof a reason for coming to the Brown School? And have you noticed any benefits for having all three under one roof?
I can answer this one first. So specifically as someone who was applying to schools with the intention of doing a social work and public health dual program, it was super important for me. When I was looking at other schools, oftentimes they have two different setups I saw. One where students are at two different schools in the same university, one for social work and one for public health. And they spend 1 year at one year at the other, and they wrap up things across a semester each or some weird back and forth that they have to do. And then other programs had where you're at two different universities doing these different programs. And so there was like literal physical barriers and separations between the two disciplines. Whereas in the Brown School, we have the unique opportunity where those physical barriers are removed. And so it makes it easier to integrate the concepts you're learning from your public health side with your social work side. I've been able to take a mix of classes from both each semester, so I'm never only focused on one thing. And it also creates the opportunity, especially for the policy piece. I haven't been personally interested in doing policy work, but having classes with peers who are really passionate about it has enlightened my understanding of policy and its importance, and recognizing that the different policy efforts that they work on will impact the work that I'm doing in the ground and with communities. And so I've really appreciated that mixed environment across different disciplines.
So for me, unlike Deja, this wasn't a factor in me choosing the Brown School. I just came for the social work program initially. But then like once I got to the Brown School, I realized like how beneficial it was to have the programs under one roof. In fact, I took on a research assistantship with a public health professor, even when I was just a social work student. So the opportunity to kind of like learn through a research job, public health, kind of sparked my interest in how they combine, to the point where I then took a public health course as one of my electives, and then decided to add on the MPH degree in addition to my MSW degree. And now I can't imagine going to a school where they are separated. So that does kind of touch on what Deja was saying, they are so integrated. It wouldn't make sense to me to silo them out into different schools. But I think one of the biggest benefits for me, regardless of if you choose to do one program or two programs, is that you will have both social work and public health students in some of your classes. And I feel like that just adds to a really rich class experience where you're having folks from different disciplines bringing in their skills and their knowledge and their experiences. So even if you're just doing one program, you really do get the benefit of having a classroom that emphasizes both.
Thank you both for your answers. And yeah, I just want to reiterate what you both have said. It's important to see that even though these fields are separate, they still all interact and speak to each other and impact each other. So like, for instance, if you're working out in the field, a policy may impact your services. So I think it's really beneficial that students know how they interact with each other. Even if you are just an MSW student, you'll still get to know more about public health and social policy because they're all under one roof. And I think that's great. And I think that's also why our curriculum was built to be different. It was designed to be different. So looking at these points, it kind of just tells you more about why our curriculum is different. So starting out with the evidence-based approach practice, we also have an anti-oppressive framework, which is because we are vigilant to advance the voices and needs of those that are marginalized. We also have a transdisciplinary problem-solving approach that drives comprehensive and sustainable solutions. And this curriculum also prepares students for new and non-traditional career trajectories. The curriculum is also very flexible. As Ali mentioned, she came in as an MSW student, but she was still able to kind of become a dual degree student and still is able to graduate on time. And then we also have skill labs that are really focused on in-demand applicable skills. I think these skill labs are great because they're only 1 credit courses, and they cover very important topics like statistical analysis skills, data management, visualization, and team leadership. Those are very important skills to have out in the world, in the field. And then last but not least, our curriculum is grounded in driving social, racial, and economic and health equity. So I kind of want to start out with talking about the MSW curriculum, so the Master of Social Work curriculum. So this program is a 60 credit hour, 2-year program. Although if you come in as an advanced standing student, you can shorten that time on a 16 or 12-month timeline. And so you'll see here that we have an MSW concentration on one side, and then we have an optional MSW specialization on our right side of the screen. So for the MSW concentration, you can really think of this as your main area of study, kind of like your major in undergrad. Here at the Brown School, you have 10 areas to choose from. So you have the American Indian and Alaska Native, children, youth, and families, health, mental health, older adults and Asian societies, social and economic development, both domestic or international, social impact leadership, violence and injury prevention, and then an individualized concentration. So within these concentrations, some of them also have tracks. So for example, the mental health concentration has 4 tracks, which help students further kind of individualize their own curriculum. So these tracks consist of a clinical social work track, a child behavioral and health track, a integrated behavioral health track, and then a clinical social work and substance use disorder treatment track. And then for the specialization, which is optional, not all students have to do a specialization. Some students choose to use their electives towards taking courses outside of the Brown School, which is totally okay. But if you choose to do specialize, you'll use those elective courses towards your specialization. And we have about 6 areas for the MSW program. We have management, policy, research, sexual health and education, social entrepreneurship, and then system dynamics. And a quick fun fact about the MSW specialization: we're one of the only few social work programs out there that have a sexual health and education specialization. So another unique thing about the Brown School. And so let's talk more about the MPH program. So for the MPH program, it's about a 52 credit hour degree program. It'll take you about 2 years to complete, just like the MSW. And of course, if you come in with advanced standing credits, that time will be shortened for you. And here you'll see that the MPH program has a specialization and not a concentration. So it's a bit different, but you can still think of it as your major, your main area of study. And we have 6 main areas. So we have the generalist, the epidemiology, biostatistics specialization, your global health, health policy analysis, mental and behavioral health, and then urban design. And then you also have an optional MPH certificate in violence and injury prevention. So I want to go back to Deja and Ali and ask them a question about their classes that they've taken so far. So I want to know, what's your general impression of the curriculum, and or what's your favorite class?
I will mention my favorite class because I just love to talk about it. I took a class last year. It was virtual in light of COVID, and it was called Designing and Implementing Sexual Health Education, Sexual Pleasure, Power, and Protection, taught by Delisha Saw. And this is one of the classes that's in that sexual health and education specialization that's unique to the Brown School. But basically, during the first few weeks of class, we learned skills and methods to teach sex education. And then as a class, we designed an 8-week queer and gender inclusive sex ed curriculum. And then we recruited 100 people from our networks, and in small groups, we actually implemented the curriculum and taught an 8-week sex ed course to our peers. So it was like a lot of work, but I learned so much, and I even learned like skills to improve my own relationships. And it was just one of the most rewarding courses I've taken. And also I learned that I have like a passion for group facilitation. But yeah, teaching a course for a course was something I hadn't even thought of. And it was amazing.
That sounds like an awesome course. I wish I had space to take that, but I'm already jam packing things into my 3 years. For me, 2 classes come to mind. One I'm only in week 3 of, so can't say as much about. That's why I'll talk about 2. Last semester, I took one of the system dynamics classes, and it's one that's focused more on simulation modeling. And that's something I hadn't really explored before. I'm very much interested in community focused interventions or practices to help community members who are most impacted by issues think through different solutions. And so simulations model was it felt tangent to that at first, but it really helped me rethink or like reframe how I think about complex issues. With the modeling class, we were able to map out things that you wouldn't think you'd be able to model in a program, and start thinking about how oftentimes when we are developing interventions for systems, we are well-intentioned, but we're reinforcing certain aspects or interactions that only make the problem worse. So we fix something in the short term, we make the issue worse in the long term. And so that type of thinking has really informed how I want to move forward in the type of work I'm doing. It's also why I work in the social system design lab. The other class I like is biostats. I just had to share that because that's not normal. I don't usually like math stuff, at least not having it be my favorite class. But I think that really speaks to how the professors at the Brown School integrate their own personalities into the way that they instruct the class. Joe Steensma does a wonderful job of allowing us to understand the practical use of biostatistics, and then also breaking down why we do things the way that we do. And it's never made so much sense to me. Again, it's only week 3, so we'll see how I feel a couple weeks in. But it's been a great experience so far.
And then I have one more follow-up question for the both of you. So I know last year was a bit different considering COVID-19 and not being able to be in person, but this year is a little different because we do have in-person classes. So I kind of want to hear more about your experiences under our current public health protocol for COVID-19.
So I can go first on this one. I actually started at the Brown School in 2019, so prior to COVID. So for me, it was definitely a huge adjustment to go from like in-person to virtual learning. I feel like in some ways I was like building up this Brown School community, and COVID kind of hindered that a little bit. But now that we're in a hybrid world and virtual classes have, I feel like professors have learned how to keep them more engaging than at first. So it's definitely gotten better. I've definitely had professors who, are more engaging than others. And I really appreciate the ones who are flexible with assignments during COVID, or who made accommodations based on individuals' like experiences and situations. But I will say that like, as far as the community aspect, 3 of my very best friends here in St. Louis are people that I met during virtual class. And so it was great to like meet them during virtual class and to develop those relationships and finally like meet in person and now be on campus together. So it's been a roller coaster in some.
I have a slightly different experience since this is only my second year here. So I was one of the first cohorts to come in since the pandemic had started. And so I think my cohort was really creative in building community in virtual spaces. But I will say, like the hybrid experience I have now is different than last fall because we've made some progress in terms of vaccinations and stuff in our communities. But it has made it a lot easier to really feel like a part of the Brown School and a part of the community by having in-person classes. So my first semester, I only had 2 in person. Spring, I was all remote. And now this fall, I have 4 classes in person. And it's been a lot easier to, one, connect with people who've been Zoom boxes for most of my experience, but then also just to meet more of the students in my cohort or who are incoming. And I've really appreciated the opportunity to build those connections in a more organic way. But again, people are still being creative with virtual environments too to connect.
Thank you both for your answers. So now I'm going to move forward with talking more about our dual degree programs and our joint degree programs. So for the dual degree programs, these programs are from the Brown School, and students are able to choose to combine both their programs together as a dual degree. So you can study your Master of Social Work and combine it with your Master of Public Health program, or you can do a Master of Public Health with a Master of Social Policy, or you can do a Master of Social Work with Master of Social Policy. So you have a lot of opportunities to kind of explore and see what best fits you and your goals. And then we also have joint degree programs. So these are very unique to the Brown School too. And I think these are amazing opportunities for students to further develop their interests. So the Brown School's joint degree programs are programs from the Brown School come in combination with other schools at WashU. So for instance, you can be a social work student, but also study business, or you can be a public health student and study law. And all these schools and programs really work together. And as we talked about earlier, all of these areas of study really they impact each other. And I think it's great that the Brown School offers these opportunities for students to kind of combine both. So let's move forward and talk about our last program, which is our MSP program. This one's a different program because you have to come in as a dual degree student, or if you come in as an MSW student or a MPH student, you can eventually add the MSP into your program. So it's basically an additional 31 credit hours to whichever program you came into the Brown School. And so you'll just have your core courses and then your electives. So the core courses are your policy analysis, politics of policy, statistics, economics, management, and then you have electives, evaluation, international policy, health economics, community development, and social entrepreneurship. And so as we've gone through all of these programs, you're probably wondering how students are supported at the Brown School because there's so many opportunities. So we have something called holistic advising. And so this is a network of support provided by people at the Brown School. So you'll have academic advisors, you'll have faculty members, staff members, and then you'll have field of education who are kind of here with you throughout every step of the way until you graduate. So for the academic advisors, they're here to really ensure that you're signing up and registering for the right courses that meet and align with your goals, and to make sure that you successfully complete your degree on time. Faculty members, they're here to support you in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And like we discussed earlier, we have a 9-to-1 faculty ratio. So students are really able to develop those mentorships with faculty. And then the field education office is here to support you choose a practicum site. And they'll help you identify goals for your practicum. They'll also, help you through any difficult conversations that you may have about your practicum. And then also they have daily drop-in hours, just like your academic advisors. And so I kind of want to speak more about our faculty. So the faculty here are pretty amazing, like Deja mentioned earlier. They make hard classes seem very easy and very understandable because they are renowned scholars. And they are also your mentors and advisors at the Brown School. They're also leading researchers in their fields. Their research is shaping the future of public health, social work, and social policy. And what's great about that is our students get to hear about their developments first. So that's a great benefit. So I kind of want to ask Ali and Deja again, can you two share more about any advisor or faculty mentorship opportunities or experiences or any of your relationships that you've had so far?
I can go first this time, Ali. It's always hard to tell on Zoom who's going to go first. In terms of relationships, so we do have that more formal avenue with the advisors that you're assigned or that you rank in or paired with during your time at the Brown School. But I've leaned on the informal connections more so than the formal ones. So the really great thing about the faculty at the Brown School is that they have an open door policy, which they've tried to translate to the virtual open door. That sounds weird, but they really want to connect with us as students and to support us in our professional development, but also personal development. So throughout my time at the Brown School, and actually before I even started at the Brown School, I was able to connect with faculty. So for instance, I reached out to Dr. Hudson the summer before I even started my application to the Brown School to learn more about his research and the dual program since he's the chair. And he was willing to find time to meet with me and talk through all my questions and concerns. And I was able to continue that relationship, and I actually work in his lab now. There have been other faculty members I've connected with, even if they didn't teach my classes, because really like they're willing to support you throughout your experience and time at the Brown School and beyond, especially if you nurture those relationships.
Yeah, so for me, I definitely have had faculty members who taught my classes, and part of the classes that they schedule a one-on-one professional development student with every person in the class. So I really have appreciated when professors have gone out of their way to get to know you and know your interests beyond just being your professor within the classroom. My faculty advisor that I was paired with is actually the professor that I'm a research assistant for. So she and I had already started to kind of develop a relationship as within that research role. And I feel like having her as my faculty advisor has only made that relationship more robust. She's always connecting me with people at various organizations that we collaborate with, and you know, recommending classes. I even had the opportunity to take the class that she taught last semester. And so it's just been really great to have someone who knows my interests, has seen my development during the time in the program, and who I know is going to support me and connect me with more people when I graduate. Yeah, and so, that's the faculty advisor that is paired with your concentration. And for me, I was still in the social work concentration, but I had a public health faculty advisor who had aligned interests with mine. Yeah, it's been really great to develop that relationship during my time.
Thank you both for answering my question. And so I kind of mentioned this earlier, but our faculty have a lot of research, so that means that creates a lot of student research opportunities for students at the Brown School. So you're able to explore your research interests alongside faculty, research centers, and campus partners through independent study, assistantships, fellowships, and research-oriented or practicum. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 19 research centers, so that means there's lots and lots of opportunities for you to be involved in research. You can work with faculty, but if you have other interests, you can also go to the School of Medicine and work with them. We also have WashU campus partners, including the Institute for Public Health, Center for Diversity and Inclusion, the Relationship and Sexual Violence Prevention Center as well. And with these opportunities, you're able to present at conferences. You're also able to co-author on research papers, which looks great on your resume and also builds a lot of skills for you. And then we also have community-based initiatives that you can get involved in if that's something that you really care about. One of our community-based initiatives are the health equity works. We have our homegrown SDL. We also have our community academic partnership on addiction. So we have a good amount of initiatives if you want to be involved. So we're not short on opportunities in this area at all. So I know Deja and Ali, you already spoke about this already, but if you want to add more, I'd love to hear more about your research opportunities. If you've taken any at the Brown School, if you've joined beyond the Brown School, anything at all, if you'd like to share, please go ahead.
I can go first on this one. So I actually applied to like a formal research fellowship before I came to the Brown School, and I was rejected from it, but it was an area of work that I was super interested in. So I actually just emailed the professor directly after I was rejected, and I was like, hi, I would love to contribute to this research if you know of any other opportunities or if you have any other projects. And she interviewed me and decided to take me on and add me to the team, even though it wasn't in like that formal fellowship opportunity. So I think that really just speaks to how professors want you to get involved. So even if they just have like one position or something, a lot of them also have a wider team and are willing to build out their team to bring students on. And when I started in that position, I was doing a lot of more like basic research work. So transcribing interviews and helping with like literature reviews and stuff like that. And now after like 2 years, I have co-authored like several papers and working in a broader capacity on the research. So it's been really, really great to just like, learn outside of the classroom and like get paid for it, obviously. And to just have that supplement like the learning that I'm doing in the classroom. I feel like it just gives me so much more depth to everything that I'm learning. And I'm also working with organizations on the ground, so I can actually see how the research that we're doing is like being implemented and impacting programs and policies moving forward. Yeah, so that has been my experience. And also I see that we now have 19 research centers. I thought we only had 15. So like Makia said at the beginning, we are clearly growing and adding more on. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's very impressive. And so I know a lot of students who come to the Brown School, not every one of them are interested in research, and that's okay. They're more interested in like receiving hands-on experience, experiences that will relate to their field. And that's when field education comes into play. And this is actually a required, it's part of your curriculum. It's something that every student has to do at the Brown School. And so what's great about your practicum experience at the Brown School is that you get to choose your own practicum site. And this is a very unique opportunity to the Brown School because most schools, they kind of assign you to a practicum site, but here at the Brown School, you kind of get to choose, which is great. And we have over 400 plus diverse partners with the Brown School. And they tend to grow every year because we have students are allowed to petition to add a new site. So that means adding new opportunities for students. And the Office of Field Education will also support you throughout your entire practicum experience. So there's not a time where you're going to be left alone. If you ever feel overwhelmed or frustrated, the Office of Field Education will be there with you, helping you and making sure that you choose the right practicum for you and finish your practicum. And so another theme that you might have noticed is the student-centered approach that we have here at the Brown School. We really care about providing support to our students. And so here is a beautiful screen filled with all the opportunities of support that we provide to our students here at the Brown School. I think I personally think this is unique because over on the right side here, you'll see all the gray boxes or rectangles. These are opportunities for you to kind of get in contact with the dean of the Brown School, where you can hear the dean speak and reach out to them for questions, and she'll answer your questions. So I think that's amazing. But we also have other opportunities for students to receive support, such as the Financial Services Office, the Office of Career Services, Office of Field Education, like I just spoke about. We also have the communications lab and holistic advising, where you'll have academic advisors helping you registering for courses. You'll have the communications lab help you with paper and help you practice presentations like the one I'm giving today. So there's lots of room for support at the Brown School. And you'll definitely learn more about them as a student here at the Brown School. And so I kind of want to talk more about career services because they're a great office. And what's super amazing about career services is once you are a Brown School student, you'll have access to them for basically the rest of your life. They're here to support you while you're at the Brown School, and they're also here to support you while you're after you graduated in your career. If you're switching careers or trying to shift careers, they're here to support you. And on the screen, you'll see they provide lots of different classes. They have resume review sessions, mock interviews, pop-up events, video tutorials. And then they also provide career fairs and reverse career fairs, also salary negotiation workshops, so many different events that are very beneficial to our students. And so I kind of now want to talk more about what our students have done in the, after they graduated. So our alumni, recent graduates have been hired to pursue a variety of fields and career paths at these following organizations. And of course, this is just a glimpse of what our recent graduates have been doing. Of course, they've gone out to do a lot of different things. We have alumni work in 50 different countries, which is very fascinating and amazing. And so as you can see, here's just an example of what they have currently been doing. And so the next slide, I'm going to talk about funding your degree. So I'm sure you're wondering, how can I fund my degree at the Brown School? And there's many different ways of doing so. Typically, students cover their funding through a combination of all of these following points that you see on the screen. So you'll receive scholarships from the Brown School. You'll receive scholarships from external organizations. There are also fellowship opportunities that can help supplement your funding, federal work study, part-time employment, federal student loans, and of course, out-of-pocket expenses. But most importantly, all students expressing an interest are considered for scholarship support at the Brown School. And part of the process when it comes to our merit-based scholarships is you'll have a video interview that may be required. And some of the select scholarships we have, you may be required to submit a short supplemental essay. But of course, you'll learn more about that once you prepare to submit your application. And so now I kind of want to answer some questions from our audience members. We already had a few questions that were submitted ahead of time. So we're going to go over that while we go over our current questions from our live audience. So right now, our first question, I'm going to have Ali answer this one since she joined the Brown School as an MSW student. I want to know, what are your reasons for choosing the MSW program at WashU?
Yeah, so interestingly, I applied to like maybe 5 or 6 grad schools, and the Brown School was the only social work program I applied to. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to pursue in grad school. But I ended up choosing the social work program really just because of how flexible it was and the wide range of like career paths it could lead me down. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do like policy or research, or if I wanted to be like a clinical social worker. And I saw that the Brown School, you know, there's different concentrations and like interest areas you can choose from based on like what populations you're interested in serving. But all of those concentrations teach you all the skills across that spectrum of micro to macro practice. And so I really just liked the focus on, you know, equity and justice and impact. And so like choosing the Brown School was really about the flexibility and about the range of careers that it would prepare me for. And I still find that I'm not really tied to like one specific career path. I do feel like I've gotten skills across all of them, and I'm excited to see like what opportunities post-graduation there would be at different levels that I feel like I've been prepared to do. So that was really my main reason, is the focus on like social justice, but with a range of skills across different levels to really address those issues.
Thank you for answering that question. So our next question, I'm going to direct it to Deja. How rigid are the course offerings for the different specializations? Do all students have access to all course offerings?
So students do have access, I'm going backwards, but students do have access to course offerings within the Brown School. So especially when you hone in on your electives, you can take classes, like say you're a social work student, you can take policy classes, you can take public health classes, or as we mentioned earlier, you can take classes across the university. But in terms of how rigid things are, so when you pick a specialization on the public health side or a concentration on the social work side, everyone has their foundation elements that you're doing no matter what you pick. But then there are some practice methods courses or more honed in focus courses that you'll take. And depending on which track or specialization or concentration you're focused on, sometimes they'll have a list of like you pick between these 2 classes or you pick between these 5 to like meet certain standards within the concentration or specialization. But the cool thing about the Brown School, which goes back to Allie's point about flexibility, is that on the social work side, you can individualize. So if you find that some of the concentrations aren't quite hitting things that you want to incorporate into your education program, you can create your own individualized concentration. You submit a form with the justification for why you want to create your own concentration. On the public health side, you can generalize. And so instead of honing on an epi and bio or policy or urban design, you can focus on whatever competencies you select for your generalist degree. And so you can kind of customize what you want to focus on within the realm of public health. So it's like there are requirements you have to meet, but you can also be really creative with how you meet those requirements.
Yeah, and again, I just want to remind everyone, we have lots of student support. So if you're always worried if you're taking the wrong classes or you're not sure what sequence you're supposed to be doing, you always can reach out to your academic advisor or even your faculty members, any mentors that you've developed. They're always here to support you. So don't worry about that. So my next question, I believe, Deja, you answered this earlier about your favorite class. So I'm going to have Allie answer this if you have a favorite MPH class yet. And then also the second question, how large is the class size on average for MPH classes?
Yeah, so I am actually doing most of my MPH classes this year. Prior to this year, the only fully MPH class I'd taken was Global Reproductive Health. And that was an awesome class, but I would have to say my favorite so far is also the 3 weeks I've had with Joe Steensma in biostatistics. He's a really awesome professor. Biostatistics was a class that I was a little worried for because I haven't done a lot of math since high school. But yeah, he just has a really great way of breaking down these concepts in a really entertaining, fun way that makes it enjoyable to learn about. And as far as class sizes, I feel like my classes have all been between about 15 to 25 students. I haven't really had any that are much larger than 25, maybe 1 or 2 that were like 27 or 28 students, but typically they are, on the smaller side. Yeah, I don't even know if the Brown School offers classes that are much larger than that, perhaps like a skill lab or something like that, but typically they are 15 to 25 students, somewhere in that range.
And there are some that are smaller depending on your specialization, like global health has some seminars where I was talking to one of my friends. She's like, there's 10 people in my class. So there are also opportunities to have even smaller class sizes if that's something you like.
Thank you both. This next question is actually, you both can answer it since both of you are student ambassadors in our office. So you both work and also go to school. So what does working while being in school look like to the both of you? Allie, or Deja, sorry.
I would say, so I worked like a full-time 9 to 5 job for 2 years between undergrad and coming to grad school. And I definitely think that like coming to grad school and having a part-time job, it was hard to learn how to balance all of that at first. especially like knowing that I would have to work on nights and weekends to kind of, get all my studies done and also my paid job. The Brown School does make it so that you cannot work more than 20 hours per week at an on-campus job because they do want you to focus on your studies. So student workers are paid $15 an hour. And like I said, 20 hours a week maximum. In addition to being a student ambassador, I'm also, as I've mentioned, a research assistant. So for that job, it has always been remote, even before COVID. And it's been really flexible. Like I don't have certain work shifts. It's more like you make your own schedule. So that's been really great because I could do like 2 hours here or there, or maybe like a bigger chunk if I have a day where I'm not on campus. But I think having that 20-hour max has been really helpful in helping me to prioritize my studies. And then I continued in my research job during the summer, and I was able to work 30 to 35 hours during the summer because I wasn't in classes. So that was helpful in terms of, making money and just diving deeper into the work on a weekly basis.
What about you, Deja?
I have a similar experience in terms of having on-campus jobs, and they've all been part-time. So although I did have one that wasn't on campus, but again, it was flexible. So for me, I have, I think, 3 jobs right now, 2 RA positions, and then working as a student ambassador. And what's been helpful for me is that everyone understands I'm a student. I was very transparent about that. So I'm able to shift my hours as needed, especially during finals, which usually aren't test periods, like a lot of papers or projects that have to be turned in. Or if I have something come up because I have to meet with an advisor, go to office hours, all of my supervisors are very understanding. So that's made it a lot easier. But people do work full-time jobs sometimes, and I know that that is a struggle. So it's definitely not recommended if you can avoid that.
Thank you both. So our next question, I'll go ahead and answer. The student submitted, they said, I would like to know the funding opportunities for international students. So as I mentioned earlier, majority of our students who express an interest in funding tend to receive an award. Specifically merit-based scholarships and merit-based scholarships, external scholarships, and on-campus work opportunities are great opportunities for international students to receive some form of funding. And then another question that we had today was, in terms of letters of recommenders, who do you prefer to be submitted? So my answer would be, we definitely prefer professional or academic references. Anyone that can really reflect upon your skills, your experiences, your writing skills or academic skills. Those are the people that you want to reach out to. Try to avoid any personal people, your siblings, parents, cousins. Don't reach out to them. And we'll actually talk more about this in our upcoming virtual session next month, October 15. The session will be over tips for creating your best application or your strongest application. So be on the lookout for that, audience members. You can go ahead and register for that online if you would like. And then since we're running low on time, we only have 5 more minutes. I'm going to go ahead and skip to our next slide to provide additional information. So if you want to learn more, you can schedule a virtual visit. You can also schedule a time to talk to current students like Ali and Deja. You can also connect with faculty members, especially the popular ones that Ali and Deja mentioned today, like Joe Steensma. If you want to connect with him and learn more about his courses, you can do that. And then, of course, you can sign up for virtual info sessions like this one today. We have 2 coming up in the next 2 months. So we have the tips for submitting your strongest application on October 14th. And then we have International Student Experience for November 11th. So I know a few of our audience members today submitted questions about international students funding and experiences. So please sign up for that upcoming session to learn more about ways to fund your time at the Brown School, as well as the different application process that you may have to encounter as an international student. And then, as you can see in our top right corner, you'll see that we have priority deadlines. These are good deadlines to keep in mind. So December 15th is the early action, March 1st is regular decision, and then after March 1st, we go into rolling admission. And if you are interested in applying, our application portal will actually open up by the end of this month. So you can go to brownschool.wustl.edu, MSW-apply or MPH apply. You can, prepare yourself starting today, and then attend the October 14th session to learn more about ways to create your best application. And then if you're further interested in meeting us virtually, we also have virtual fairs and forums coming up in the next few months. So if you can screenshot this page so you can save it and attend those fairs. These are opportunities for you to speak with me or our other admissions recruitment specialists to ask us questions or to learn more about the programs. And then my last slide is my contact information. You can email me at makia.a@wustl.edu for any questions, or if you're looking to get connected with someone. I'm your go-to person. And I just wanted to say thank you all for attending today's session. And a big thank you to Deja and Ali for being our panelists today. Thank you so much. And a big thank you to Sarah Birch for fielding all our questions in the comment section. Thank you all, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.